you everyone for joining us this evening. My name is Trevor Anhill. I am the President of the Medicine Hat and District Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our Business Town Hall, hosted by the Chamber and the City of Medicine Hat. Before we begin, the Chamber would like to take this time to honor and acknowledge that we are situated on Treaty 7, Treaty 4 territory, traditional lands of Siksika, Kainai, Piikani, Stoney Nakoda, Tsuut'ina, as well as Cree, Sioux, and the Saulteaux bands of Ojibwe peoples. We also honor and acknowledge that we are on the homelands of the Métis Nation with Region 4. The Medicine Hat District Chamber of Commerce has been advocating for business for over 123 years and seeks answers to questions and concerns of importance to our membership. Currently, your chamber has over 800 active members, ranging from home-based businesses to large corporations. We're celebrating them all this week, this Small Business Week, which we're thankful to kick off during this town hall. Since our City Council was elected in 2021, the Chamber of Commerce has worked with Council and the City on several municipal issues, including sustainable municipal finances, red tape reduction, levies, fees, energy and utilities, and economic development, just to name a few. As an organization, we are committed to voicing the concerns of the business community on their behalf. Tonight, we'll be hearing from several members of our City Council and Mayor Clark. At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator this evening. Lisa Dressler has been the Chamber's Commander-in-Chief for the last 14 years, and we are extremely grateful to have her. Lisa has continued to ensure that our Chamber is known as a strong, consistent voice for local business on the municipal, provincial, and federal stages. And Lisa, our Chamber and the business appreciate you. Please join me in welcoming Lisa Dressler.
Thank you, Trevor, and thank you to the city and your team for working with us to host this town hall with you this evening. We certainly appreciate the opportunity. I typically prefer being in behind the scenes, so I'm very honored to be moderating tonight's event, and certainly very appreciative of Council making the time tonight, particularly after a very late night Council meeting last night. So I'm sure you are looking forward to getting a few hours of shut-eye after this town hall tonight. Before we begin tonight's event, I would like to take a moment to set the stage for how we'd like the evening to go. As a chamber, two of our core values are to be collaborative and solution-oriented. To us, this means that we work together to find solutions to the issues our members face, approaching every issue with the goal of getting to a solution. This evening's town hall with our mayor and councillors will be with that same approach in mind. Over the past couple of weeks, we've been collecting questions from our business community for our mayor and councillors to try to make sure we hear from each of the members of council who are up here today. We're going to structure this event similar to our election forums. We don't have a timing clock, and we're not going to time and regulate that part, but we do want to hear from each one of you, and we want to allow each of you the opportunity to speak to your focus areas or areas of expertise. From there, we'll open it up for any of the other members of the panel to speak to the questions. Follow-up questions may be asked on specific items to gain further insight into the focus areas of tonight's town hall. For the audience, I ask that you remain respectful during this evening's event. Ultimately, we want to hear as much as possible from the members of council who have joined us today. An audience outburst slow this process down. If you have a question, please hold up your hand, and one of our chamber staff or board members around the room will bring you a paper for you to write your question on. Those questions will be collected and brought up to the front in priority order based on the questions received and the time allotted for this evening's town hall. Questions submitted in advance will be asked first, turning to questions submitted from the floor following the pre-submitted questions and based on the time permitted. We request questions submitted from the floor remain focused on the goal of finding solutions. Now, without any further ado, I would like to invite the audience to join me in welcoming from the City of Medicine Hat, Mayor Lindsay Clark. Councillor Cassie Hyder, Councillor Ramona Robbins, Councillor Shyla Sharps, and Councillor Alison Van Dyke. Welcome. Perhaps before we get started, because you just had your organizational meeting last night, perhaps we can have each of you in order of seating introduce yourselves and the committees that you are now serving on, if you remember. Maybe that's not a good question.
All right, my name is Lindsay Clark. I'm the mayor of Medicine Hat. I apologize if I miss any appointments that I have, but I was appointed to sit on some external commissions and committees that I feel really strongly about. So Medicine Hat Community Housing, Community Futures Entrecorp, the Community Housing Entrecorp Cypress View Foundation, Palliser Economic Forum, and no, I think someone can fact check me, but I think that's it.
Thank you, and I recognize it was a long night last night, and it was just a decision last night, so it may not be fresh.
Good evening, good morning, I'm not sure anymore after yesterday. I'm Councillor Cassie Hyder, and thank you for having us tonight, Lisa. This is just a great another opportunity for us to communicate with the citizens of our community. By recollection, I made public service by a very slick vote between Councillor McGrogan and I, but I fought him for it. Corporate services, which I really enjoy with Managing Director Dennis Egert. Palliser Economic Partnership, which is a great, I love the role. It's how we can grow as a whole rural district, not only a city. So we do that. I also sit on the, I like this one, Subdivision and Appeal Board, and we get some rowdy people in there, so it's very entertaining if anyone needs to be entertained on it. I think it's at Wednesday at noon. Tourism with Jay Sanderson, which is so refreshing after you have a coffee with him. How can you not just be energized? And I believe I sit on a naming. Thank you, managing. And that's all for right now.
So I continue to sit as the chair of So I continue to sit as the chair of the Public Services Committee. So I've done that for 2 years and will continue until someone tells me to stop. Because of that role, I'm also on the Emergency Management Committee. And in the community, I was on the Medicine Hat Community Housing Society, and now Mayor Clark's on that. We've already exchanged some notes and information to hand that off to her, and we're going to sit together, lots of time together apparently, on Cypress View Foundation. Cypress View Foundation, for those of you that don't know, does show up here on your property tax bill, and it provides low to moderate income housing for seniors in our community and in our 2 neighboring municipalities as well. That's a committee that's really packed now because Reeve Hamilton, Mayor Kilpatrick, and Mayor Clark are all on the committee there. I don't know how that one got so special, but it's a great committee and great work to be involved with. I also sit on the Medicine Hat Public Library Board. And I think that's it, yes.
Now that you mentioned Cypress County and Redcliffe, I did recall that I sit on the Intermunicipal Committee, which is, I'm sure Shadow will speak more to it.
I was going to just call you on that. You sit on intermunicipal with me. So, and that again is a stacked committee. It's all the mayors and a councillor from every district. So on top of that, I sat on audit committee as vice chair again with Managing Director Egert. I'm not on corporate services with him this year, but that's okay. I get to be the chair of development and infrastructure. I am on energy, land, and environment as a committee member. I actually have to scroll through, I do apologize. I am on Chamber of Commerce, I'm the newly appointed a member for the Chamber. I sit on intermunicipal with Mayor Clark, and that is, like I said, that's every 60 days. That's Cypress County, Redcliffe, and Medicine Hat have a joint agreement. And then I sit on one more, maybe two more. Oh, MPC. Currently on SBDA, but I'm only going to pick one of them because there may be a bit of a conflict there. And physician attraction and retention. Myself and Allison sit on that. That's it.
Hi everyone, I had to look my list up because as everyone has pointed out, it's quite new. So internally in the city, I'm on Energy, Land and Environment Committee, Development and Infrastructure Committee, and Audit Committee. And then as an appointee to external groups, I'm on the Shortgrass Library Board, the Regional Drainage Committee. It actually has a longer name than that, but everyone just calls it Regional Drainage. Intercity Forum on Social Policy, the Alberta Municipal Climate Leadership Council, and then Physician Attraction and Retention.
Thank you to each of you. I think it's important for our community to understand and realize all the other commitments that you have. It isn't just a council meeting every second Monday. There is a lot of extra time, energy, and effort that each of you put in. And so I just wanted to highlight all of the other obligations and commitments that you have as members of council. So thank you, with it being so fresh, just to highlight all the work that each of you are doing. So we'll start off with our questions. What do you feel has made the most impact, or that you've made the most progress on since the 2021 election? And Mayor Clark, we'll start with you.
All right, thank you. I'll try and be brief, and then others will have an opportunity to answer as well. This town hall is a good example of how I think we've improved openness and communication with the public. We have a podcast that also works towards that collaboration, and that spills over. We have a lot of work to do, obviously, with respect to developing relationships with our region, within our region, with the college and school boards, as well as the economic development organizations within our community. Those relationships are so important for our success. I think, sometimes people look to the city for leadership, and that makes sense, but we can't do anything alone, and each of those pieces is so important, as is our relationship with the provincial and federal governments. Wanted to also specifically highlight the environmental framework. It's not done yet, but that is going to be a key piece for us moving forward with respect to drought resilience and energy transition. You spoke last night about the importance of making sure that our energy is stable and reliable and affordable for the long term, and energy transition is a huge part of that. I think we all recognize that. Strong towns will be talked about, I'm sure, tonight, but two key pieces out of that I think are so important for the viability and for our city to thrive and be economically stable through generations to come. One big piece of that is making sure we understand our long-term infrastructure liability and how we manage that. We cannot continue to have the level of service that we have if we are not economically viable. And so really understanding that and understanding how to manage that is very important. And then also the small bets philosophy. So I think a lot of times cities are guilty of planning to plan, then developing a plan, and then putting the plan on a shelf, and then remembering the plan years later, like you reminded us of, like some things that were never done. But we want to make sure that we're evolving through action, and small bets allow you to take low risk innovation and turn it into, either put it in the trash can or make it bigger if it's working. So those are some of the things I think I'm proud of.
Okay, thank you. And we'll switch up the order. Next, I'll go to Councillor Robbins. If you'd like to chime in, we'll have each council member respond to this question.
Just used to us being in a line. Oh, and I didn't even ask to speak. I know, though. So the thing that I'm proudest of since 2020, when it was our 2nd year anniversary, happy anniversary, you guys. That was a great way to celebrate it last night. So the thing that I'm proudest of is when I started as the chair of Public Services Committee, most of the committee meetings had been held in a closed session. And I really struggled, as did many of us through the campaign, to understand why that might be. Discussions with the then managing director revealed that really that was just the practice. It wasn't necessary under FOIP. We weren't talking about contracts or things that could affect other people's financial status. And so we were able to move the meetings into an open setting always. It's very rare in public services we have to discuss something in closed. I think it's happened maybe 4 or 5 times over 2 years. And so I'm proud that with that one thing that I really had hoped to accomplish, I was able to work with city staff and of course the rest of the committee to accomplish early and consistently.
We'll go down to the end to Councillor Van Dyke.
I think I still have this on. Yeah, so I think for myself, the things I'm most proud of are the decisions we've made that improve quality of life in the community. I think, especially when you look at mid-sized cities, you have to think about like, what is the thing that makes us exceptional or would draw people to be here. There's a lot of opportunities of varying kinds of different places. And for myself, with children, my concern's always like, what is there to do? Will I have a good quality of life in this community? And I think sometimes that has fallen by the wayside in decision-making in the past. And so I'm really proud of a few of the things that we've done towards that. Reopening Crestwood and the Moose as an interim until we have a more established, or can move forward with the facilities for the future plan. Also the expansion of the fare entry program to include public transit, which had never been before, and also the fare entry relief credit. Neither of those things existed prior to our term, and I'm really excited and happy that they are available for our community now. And then a few of the plans being worked on, so the environmental framework, as Mayor Clark had mentioned, and then the community well-being plan. We don't have a social policy plan being used currently in the city, and most cities our size have that and are actively working towards progress in that area, so I'm really excited about that. And then the active transportation study too as well, because we see people moving around the community in different ways, and I think planning ahead for the future in that area is just going to make our community more attractive for the kinds of people we want to attract here.
Great, thank you. And we'll move back over to this end to Councillor Hyder.
You threw me off, Lisa.
Just trying to mix it up.
I know, mixing it up on a Tuesday night. I would probably echo a few of my colleagues' comments here. I do believe that since our election, we have strived to have open communication and dialogue with our citizens. I know we all do our best when we're, whether it's at a council meeting, but just being residents of our community. It's not like we can just go to Costco or Safeway and get our groceries with our children or whatever it may be. There's conversations about utility rates, there's conversations about the homeless population, there's always that. And I think we've done a really good job doing our best to communicate with our community, and like Mayor Clark said, having these town halls is just an opportunity to, everyone has a voice. I think one thing I'd like to touch on is we came in with fresh eyes. There's 7 new people around the table, and that's huge. And I think, and from all different walks of life and different ideologies. And it was interesting how we, after 2 years, we are working together, because it is hard when you come from different places and different important values. So, but we all came in with fresh eyes, and I found that kind of interesting because none of us had done it before. And it gave us an opportunity to look at things in a different light And with that, I think we're moving in a little bit of different directions for the positive. And yeah, that's about it, Lisa.
Great, thank you. And Councillor Sharps.
So there's a couple of things. So the very first one is a reiteration of Councillor Robbins, and that is taking the meetings into open. And I remember my first couple of meetings, poor Dennis. I mean, I questioned everything. Why is this enclosed? Why is this? And you know, he really educated me and got me to understand why we would do certain things enclosed. But however, having said that, he also worked, the management team was incredible to work with in terms of they listened to what we desired and said, okay, what can we do? So, you know, one of the things we see a lot of angst in the community right now about utilities and money and how much we're making. And the first thing I always say is, you didn't know that 3 years ago. So the fact that we're being open, the fact that you're hearing it on the news, it's in our financials, we're making sure everybody knows about it, that's one of the reasons you know, is because we're open about it. And I want to continue being open about it. But I'm very, very proud of that. I think another thing is the partnerships in the community. As you know, my day job is just right across the street. I'm an HR consultant and an immigration consultant, and it was incredibly difficult to work with some of our partners in industry. They were just so frustrated when I, as an HR consultant, would work with some of them, and they would be very frustrated with some of the practices of the city. And that would just be the blanket term, I'm frustrated with the city. You start deep diving some of the issues, and they're always a little bit different. However, the nice thing about this council and the leadership team is that we tend to work together at addressing these issues and getting our leadership team working with us, and we're working with the community. That's the only way any of this is going to work. It's not going to be a council, it's not going to be leadership, it's not going to be industry. It's all of us are in this together, or it's just not going to work. And then the last thing is our leadership team. I am going to say, hands down, we're just not going to make this work. Council can give our direction, but we're not the ones executing it. So very grateful after going through several city managers, and we didn't torment them. That was just, you know, I just want to be clear, they were short-term commitments. We found one that is emulates the same practices as us, and, you know, not scared to make the decisions, because that's part of leadership, make the decisions and work with the team to do the right things for our community. So I think those are three things that when I sat across in my office for the last 25 years, I would want to beat my head against the wall because I never knew what was happening, in my mind. So I do think that things have changed immensely in the last 2 years, because you're frustrated on some of these things because you know about them. So hey, I'm good with that. If we can get some of these conversations going, it's a step in the right direction.
Thank you to each of you. The next series of questions will be more directed at one particular member of council, with certainly the open invitation that anybody can chime in. So Mayor Clark, as you anticipated, of course, we're going to get a question about Strong Towns submitted. So how do you feel about Strong Towns almost a year after the start of the project? And given the public's response, do you think the same goals can be pursued more successfully without Strong Towns facilitation?
I don't know. I think there were a few reasons for wanting to bring in Strong Towns. One is to kind of give that shot in the arm for these principles. I think it's very easy for things to go in an MDP or to have a general philosophy about things, but to have someone actually pushing you along, prodding you, mentoring you, and looking for that culture shift within the city, providing the education about various principles. I think that is helpful. The other thing is that they have a very large following on social media, and they're very good at marketing things. So I think from my perspective, it was a good opportunity to get sort of North American and beyond coverage of Medicine Hat and how innovative we can be and forward thinking. So both of those things were an advantage. I think the conversation in the community, in some cases, it's probably a matter of, you know, we need to do a better job of communicating what the principles are. We need to provide opportunities for that bottom-up innovation and communication to actually get where it needs to get within the city, or find ways of facilitating those innovative ideas from our community. I think of micro grants that we've established are a good opportunity for that. So definitely the ideas could have been pursued. Our planning department had been discussing them, and they are in our MDP to a certain extent, but I think it was more of a I don't know, B12 shot to some of the principles. And when you look at just understanding the value of infill, understanding the value of growing where you are, that plays into how you incentivize those things, or how you de-risk them, or how you come up with creative solutions to make those opportunities, the infill, the tricky parcels, the parcels that maybe have been sitting there for a long time that no one wants to touch. How do we remove obstacles? Where are people struggling, and how do we remove those struggles or help make it better? So overall, I'm looking forward to some outputs for Strong Towns. Right now, I think it's largely in the community, the community groups that are working on their various things, and within the city on learning and that kind of thing. But over the course of the next year, we hope to see outputs of what is our infrastructure deficit, and what do we need to do, and how do we incentivize the right kind of development, the development that's going to facilitate our long-term economic viability. So also, and you'll appreciate this probably, the economic gardening, where you make sure that your businesses and your economy and your builders are thriving in your community, and that's how you attract people from externally to come to your city, is by having a city that truly is easy for business to operate.
I do appreciate that. Councillor Hyder, I feel like I need the speakers list that you have in council meetings, so you can just put the list up and we can see. But if any councillors do wish to chime in, just signal me, and then I can recognize in order of request. So Councillor Hyder.
Thank you, Lisa. And I just wanted to touch on a bit when I was looking over these questions. There's still lots of, I think, education to be had as far as the Strong Towns ideology. One thing that I do support about it is our brownfield development that it's exciting to me. Last night we had a developer get approved for a home that is a brownfield development, and that's something that we have land within the city that we can work with and enhance the neighborhood and things like that. So that's something for me. We just had, is it Mackenzie Road? Mackenzie, which is so cool. It is so cool. And things like that, just I think that little pockets of development throughout the community is just little treasures that we have. So moving forward.
And I am going to chime in on that. That's one of our developers, the Sissons family, that's behind that Mackenzie News, and you can Google it if anybody's interested. Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, it may surprise you to know this, Lisa, but I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I don't, but I do follow Strong Towns, and I follow Strong Towns Medicine Hat. So as I'm scrolling through my friends and family, what's going on with them, what I notice about Strong Towns posts, or City of Medicine Hat referring to Strong Town posts, is that, those little emojis on the bottom, you get thumbs up, you get laughing, and then you get the angry ones, and then the hearts. And so sometimes I will then say, well, this seems like something that I should look at and see which one, how do I feel about this situation? And sometimes I'll read the article and say, that totally makes sense for Medicine Hat. I don't give thumbs up or anything, but it'll make sense to me. And sometimes I say, that would never work. And I'm not going to go as far to get angry about it, but if that's the only emoji I have to show that I wouldn't like that, I think, or thumbs down, but I really think that it makes people think about other options, and it makes them talk about other options. And I really feel like, you know, in my day job where I had any success, if I was successful in my work, and I hope I was when I looked at a situation and I tried to look at it from every person's point of view. And I think Strong Towns is making us do that, even though we don't even realize we're doing it. So you have people who hate Strong Towns and think we're wasting money on it, but they're still reading and discussing it. And out of those discussions is going to come something that makes us better. So, anyway, thumbs up. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you. Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you, yeah. So I think that Strong Towns is a success. We're only a year into the first of 2 years, so we're not even at the implementation stage really, and yet there has been implementation of the philosophy happening. We had in development and infrastructure reports on the downtown bathroom situation, that some of that resolution came through, some Strong Town principles, as well as the underpass between North and South Railway. Some of those things were filtered through some of those philosophies and thinking. And I think that anytime you have an institution like the city or any kind of a larger business or institution, there's kind of a natural inertia that can happen. People are resistant to change, and that without having an external force like we have with the Strong Towns Community Action Lab, that it would be very easy to lose momentum on our own and not be implementing some of this work. So I'm very excited to see what's going to come out of the second year of this when we start real serious implementation of the things that the staff have been learning, and the community as well. I think it's going to take a little longer to permeate the community, but given time, that will happen.
Thank you. And Councillor Sharps.
So I don't always align with this, and I'm going to tell you why. Angry. No, I'm not. Not at all, actually. So I just think that when I first started reading about Strong Towns, well, first of all, I'm going to admit total failure on my part. When Mayor Clark brought it to the meeting, number one, I completely I got very excited because she was very passionate about it, and everybody was passionate about it. So I didn't read as much as I should have, and I thought, no, I can get behind this because it's forward thinking. And then I shouldn't have read any more, because then all of a sudden I started getting these emails that saying, you're into 15-minute towns? I'm like, what? No, I'm not. So, and I'm not into 15-minute towns at all, but I unfortunately didn't, and I'm gonna say if I was sitting at the council table and I got misled, maybe that we didn't do a good enough job of communicating what exactly that it is. So, because I'm very much about trying to accommodate all of our community. There's people out there that want a walkable community. I think that's great. I'm not one of them. I like living on the edge of town, driving to my house. I like walking my dogs, and I know that sounds horrible, but I'm very much a introvert, and I kind of keep in my own world, and I don't want to walk around and see people, and that's not a dig. So I just think, though, we are made of a community that all have different wants and needs, and how do we figure that out for everybody? However, having said all of that, some of the core principles of I was just supposed to say 15-minute towns, and that's wrong one. Of Strong Towns, I really do agree with when it comes to infrastructure and how do we do this for our next generation, that we are not continuously building and incurring additional costs and outside of our framework of environment, etc. So I think my biggest issue within Strong Towns is not necessarily the concept, but how we've executed it from a communication point of view, and consistently and continuously. I also think that at no point do I ever want our staff to not feel that they're emboldened to come forward with these decisions without Strong Towns. I mean, we've hired some pretty good people. At no point do I want a consultant to foreshadow that to say, but run through us first. I want to make sure that everyone's feeling emboldened. It's taxpayer dollars that are paying these positions. And I've met some of these people, luckily enough, sitting around the horseshoe. We get to talk to so many of the employees, and there's some talent around that city hall. I sure hope that they're feeling emboldened to make these decisions and come forward, and not that we're going to agree with everything, but just to make these decisions and talk and brainstorm. So I like it. I just want to be better at the communication part of it, and metrics. Metrics are huge to me. At the end of the day, I don't focus on a certain part of an HR consultancy that doesn't make me any money. That's the bottom line. If my profit margin's here, I'm probably never going to do it again. So what are my metrics? What am I getting out of this? Is it useful to the community? I get that business head in a little bit where I just want some stronger, not warm fuzzy, I want some actual numbers. What is this doing for our community?
Do you just want to be clear though that Strong Towns is not directing the city? We're not required to run things through Strong Towns or like follow them. It's more of just like a mentorship teaching us the principles. So just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you for clarifying. I'm aware.
So it's a good segue into the next question or topic, because Strong Towns does focus on brownfield and certainly strengthening the core of the city. We do have quite a few vacant commercial spaces in the city and downtown. Do you have a strategy to address this issue? And Councillor Sharps, I'm actually going to direct this to you because you recently put forward a motion to review one of the city's bylaws, so maybe you can speak to this first.
Yes, I would be happy to. So first of all, I can't take any credit for this. I have zero life, and I was scrolling through the internet, and it was a Winnipeg councillor that actually made a bylaw, or made a notice of motion, and he deserves full credit, but I thought it was brilliant. He made a notice of motion to his council to say, what are we doing? We have all these abandoned, derelict buildings, and I mean, I'm right here, and I've got them all over me. And I mean, I love my little church, but I can walk 2 feet to the right, and there's derelict buildings. So what do we do? It's not about creating an environment of punishment for the building owners, but how can we encourage them, and how can we get people to, I don't know, not light fires and light up our neighborhoods, things like that. We got to figure this out. So this particular councillor made a notice of motion to, and I'm not going to lie, it's pretty assertive, made me smile, but it was right to the point. It gave, his notice of motion was to direct bylaw to issue 1 ticket, and if the property wasn't cleaned up in 30 days, the director of planning could bulldoze it. Okay, now I'm not saying that that's ideal, but it definitely is better than, here, let's give it another ticket, here, let's give it another ticket, and let's give it another ticket, and 6 months later the fire department's there putting out a fire because we've had some of the vulnerable sector trying to keep warm, lighting a fire, and the next thing you know, it's causing harm to other buildings. So we need to do something different. And I read the bylaw, and it was, in my mind, weak. The only thing bylaw could do was write a ticket, and maybe go back and write a ticket. So we are complaining that bylaw isn't doing anything, but if you read the bylaw, they can't do anything. So that bylaws are written by city. So let's look at what we can do different. I'm not saying I have all the answers. I made my wishes clear. Let's get some meat behind this. Let's clean up the neighborhood, but let's help people get there. You know, I'm not trying to bulldoze our neighborhoods, but there's a couple of properties down the road that, like, I know the owners don't even live anywhere near here. I don't even think they're in the western side of the country. So, yeah, their thoughts are not, what? You want me to do what? Like, just leave me another ticket. I'll pay it when it comes against my taxes. So I think we just need to beef that up a little bit. You know, I noticed one of your questions was about downtown. Well, part of downtown is when you bring the buses down here and they see these derelict buildings, it doesn't give you the warm fuzzy. So let's control what we can control, and then let business owners do their thing and developers do their thing. But I find so many business owners that are putting so much time and money into downtown, and we're not helping them out by cleaning up these derelict properties. So that was the precipice behind that. And I'm hoping that we can get some meat behind this bylaw and really push. And I will continue nagging until we get it. So, but they know that, so we're good.
So we'll go to Councillor Hyder and then Mayor Clark.
Thanks, Lisa. I almost sit through the chair. See, I'm still reeling from yesterday. When we talk about downtown and we talk about it's beautiful Medicine Hat downtown, and I support many businesses down there. I just need some clarity. First of all, there's rumors that there's a lot of property owners downtown that do not live in Medicine Hat. So whether they're Calgary, Edmonton, and things just get lapped. So I would like to follow up on my end with that. But we should be either policing this, or I'm reading this incentive. So there should be, I mean, I frequent a coffee shop. I won't give a shout out to Station or anything. And that place is beautiful. Jake and they've done such a remarkable job. And, you know, they've relied on some grants and some incentive things, but we need to keep making sure that those people that are there every day from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m., small businesses, because we are celebrating Small Business Week, are taken care of. And I agree with Councillor Sharps, and we do need to have a stronger arm as far as derelict buildings, you know, ticket after ticket after ticket, they're not going to pay. So there has to be a different approach. And maybe it is coming in with a little bit of a carrot for them, you know, as part of maybe doing some renovations on their property. I'm not sure, but I'd actually like if anyone after knows if the properties downtown are still owned by, like some of them are owned by out of town, I'd like to know that. But I'm interested in helping people out.
Lisa, I just wanted to add one thing. So when I made that bylaw in council, it was very interesting. The very next day I got a citizen call me and said, hey, can you come up to Ross Glen? So now we're out of downtown. I get up to Ross Glen, beautiful area, and park outside their house, wonderful people. The very next place, next door to them, there was a fire in 2 years. 2 years ago, about 2 years ago, me, crawled up on the fence, looked over, and there was a fish pond that had been there. And I could literally see them still floating on top. And there was at least 22, 23. And I just thought, I'd be mortified. Like, this is Ross Glen, but and yes, it's a derelict building, and yes, they're probably waiting for insurance, but what can we do as a city to help push this forward? Because meanwhile, Ross Glen, right on the edge of town, these people, because of these dead koi, and nobody's attending this, you can see that they've been infested with rattlers coming up there. And the next thing you know, there's other vermin, and it gets just wrong. Like, so we gotta figure this out. So it is still a fire, and yes, insurance is involved, but we're the municipality. I mean, we've gotta have more clout than this, and I don't know what that is. We gotta figure it out. So it wasn't just about downtown. I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you. Mayor Clark.
Thank you. Just like all kinds of like property rights are going through my head, but I think it's really like two separate issues in a lot of cases. So there is unsightly nuisance properties, and we certainly do have the authority under our bylaws and the Municipal Government Act to, you know, ticket, issue orders, go in and do the thing that they were supposed to do, and then charge it back to them, definitely. But then there's just when we speak specifically of downtown, and there are all kinds of reasons for properties to be unsightly or nuisance. Sometimes it's, you know, mental health issues, sometimes it's poverty, sometimes it's an unsavory character has set up shop in, not necessarily unsavory, but like selling drugs. I don't know what you call that. So there's all kinds of reasons for that, and I think, you know, that's one issue, and we have tools to deal with that. When it comes to properties downtown that, you know, are maybe vacant and haven't been maintained, it comes back to, you know, maybe they haven't had any upgrades since the 1970s, and so a builder would go in and they'd have to do all the upgrades since 1970 in this really old building, and the codes have changed, and now they need a firewall, and there's, you know, a lot of expense and a lot of especially risk in terms of redeveloping and revitalizing older areas and areas that haven't always been seen as a hot property. So I think it is, like Councillor Hyder mentioned, carrots, but those carrots don't always have to be in the form of, here's some cash money, do what you will with it. It's about looking at the why. Why hasn't this building been developed? Why has this building been empty for, you know, 10 years or 10 months? And then drilling down on that why and figuring out what the city or other community members can do to either, if it's risk, de-risk the property, if it's signage, add some signage, if it's, you know, maybe we need to do a bigger push externally to Medicine Hat and make sure that everyone knows that, you know, the area where Medelta is really hot, and downtown is really hot, and make those properties valuable increasing the value of those to people so that they're willing to invest more money into it, and or de-risk the property so that we're, you know, encouraging the development in those areas. So yes, there are sticks, but wherever possible, I think it's valuable to consider, like, why is this happening, and then try and remove the obstacles that are in place.
Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Actually, Councillor Van Dyke sent us an article from Edmonton, and City of Edmonton has a very similar problem on a much larger scale. And according to the article sent, which I found very intriguing, they've created a tax class or proposed tax class for derelict properties. So if you have a derelict property, your taxes would be higher in Edmonton than if you didn't. And I'm not always convinced that enforcement, I say this about every bylaws, we're trying to legislate behavior. If we can't enforce what we've legislated, then we've wasted time. And so if enforcement has not been effective, I'm very interested to know more about the possibility of raising taxes on those properties and making it uneconomical to leave them derelict. And if you are just leaving them because you're not thinking about them and you moved elsewhere or never lived here or whatever, and your taxes get so high that it ends up in a city auction somewhere, then so be it. But I think that's an option worthwhile pursuing.
Can I just give one more shout out to ABD, or are you?
She's
you're
next
on?
up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say that article you sent about pumping up your downtown instead of constantly criticizing it.
Yeah. Sorry, am I?
Okay, Councillor Van Dyke, it sounds like we have a couple shout outs.
Okay.
You could reference.
So I'm one of those people that likes to share the information I found with everyone, and they're used to getting like lengthy emails with attachments and ideas. So anyways, yeah, a few things like Mayor Clark had mentioned. When I was looking at the questions, my first thought was like carrot or stick, and I think about my kids like, what's the thing that's going to encourage the behavior I want? Is it punishment, or is it some kind of a motivating factor instead? And I think that there might be a little bit of both in this situation. And I know in the past we've had kind of targeted incentives for the downtown and for infill development, and I imagine with our new economic development officer that we're going to look at increased targeting in those areas based on our strategic plans. And then yeah, so that, and then again, like the possibilities of the derelict properties and what kind of stick do we use with that to kind of motivate people to make changes. And then I think also just to create an environment that people, it makes it easy for people to make positive changes too. So, and some of that falls on us as a municipality. So if we make the processes easier for people to do that, there will always be regulations, there will always be safety codes, and there will always be red tape, because some of those things exist to protect the public and protect workers, and we need those things, but we can figure out ways to make some of that stuff easier so that people can move ahead in getting things done in the community.
Thank you. And some of you have already answered the next question in terms of the reference to carrots and sticks, or we look at it as incentives or levies and fees. So maybe I'll switch up that question just a little bit to see if anybody has a preference on the carrot or the stick. And Councillor Van Dyke, I know you mentioned a little bit of both. Do you want to expand on that in terms of a preference, or what you see working better than something, an alternative solution?
I'm not entirely sure. I think it would be a combination of the two. I don't think you can. Okay, I'll just tell you a little parenting philosophy that I learned from my mother, which is actually about horses. And she always says that you ignore the bad behavior and reward the good behavior. And I try to carry that through into all areas of my life, and it actually works surprisingly well beyond horses and parenting. And so I think there's room for both, but I prefer to focus on the positive and leave kind of the harsher measures for repeat offenders.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Councillor Hyder.
ABD, she surprises me every day with her. She's like Cliff Clavin, you see. No, I'm kidding. I'm more carrot and
collaboration maybe, Lisa, as far as economic development goes. We have to build relationships with people and have and sustain and steward those relationships. So that's, I don't know much about the strong arm, but I think the more we communicate with people that want to come here or are here or want to develop in our region, the better off we are, and making sure that that we are stewards of our community, and making sure that we work with them to make them feel like this is where they need to be.
Great, thank you. Mayor Clark?
Just in terms of economic development, I think there are carrots and there are sticks. But as Councillor Van Dyke mentioned, some of the issues are structural or systemic. So looking at our workforce right now, we have people looking for jobs who can't find them, and employers looking for workers who can't find them. And so how do we match that up? How do we do a better job of, trades are short, healthcare, we're short. How do we do a better job of attracting or retraining the workforce we need for the jobs that exist? And the Medicine Hat College is definitely a part of that. They're very involved in looking at our region and figuring out how can they fit in and be a part of making the workforce stronger in Medicine Hat for the employers. Some of it is immigration. I think it's very clear that Canada needs to have some immigration to ensure that we're sustainable over the course of time. And so that's outside of our hands, but that's something that we can push for, and we're, the rural renewal stream is something that we're working on. And then, planning or utilities, some of it is structural. And so looking at, again, how we remove the obstacles that exist so that people can be successful in our community.
Well, that was a great segue into our next question, because it is on economic development. It has been a hot topic for a while now. Given the city recently approved the Economic Development Department's operational strategy, can you explain what is happening now with economic development, rural renewal, and the regional economic development strategy, and what you feel is the most critical step forward to ensure the success of these strategies? And Councillor Van Dyke, I know you've been chair of Economic Land Strategic Planning and Development Committee for the first 2 years of your term. Perhaps you can field this question first.
Yes, thank you. So that committee name has changed and structure has changed. I can just say a little bit about it because it's, honestly, I'm just gonna be completely honest, it's an extremely confusing program because it involves different levels of government, not-for-profit organizations, and the general public as well, and immigration. So it's quite complex. The city has recently hired someone specifically in the role to coordinate that program. And so I'm quite excited to see some action in that area, as is the people I know in the community working towards the same goals. I'm not sure that one other comment I just wanted to make about it is we do have on our city website kind of a timeline without dates, but just a general idea of how the process is going and where we're at in that process. So if you're interested, you can check that out on there. The one comment I did wanted to make on this additionally, and Mayor Clark has touched on this, and I know Councillor Sharps, this is an issue that she's talked about a lot, is the idea that we need immigration in order to grow our community and provide workers in our community. And I think that there's a responsibility on all of us in that area, whether you're a business owner or not, and that is to create a welcoming environment. We need more diversity in our community. We need to make a place that people want to live. And if they don't feel comfortable being here because they, for whatever reason, feel unwelcome, then they're going to choose to move to another center. So whether you're a business owner or not, or using this program or not, I really encourage people to open up your homes and your businesses and your life to new people in our community. We have a lot of amazing immigration services here, and they run programs all the time and events that you can participate in and get to know some of the people in our community and encourage them to stay here.
Great, thank you. Anybody else want to weigh in? Okay, we'll go to the follow-up. What do you see as the city's role in assisting and spurring business growth? And maybe Councillor Sharps, we'll start that one with you.
Thank you. Yeah, there's a few things. I think that the new managing director has really taken this head on. I think one of my biggest pet peeves for the last 2 years was how long it took to get a development permit or how long it took to get these things. And not even a few weeks ago, I had a contractor call me. Sorry, it wasn't a contractor. I had a homeowner call me and say, look, my contractor has waited for months. This is crazy. So I sent it up to Managing Director Bohan, and he comes back with this little chuckle and says, yeah, no, it's been 4 days. So the contractor had it for a few months, didn't tell the homeowner. So the good news was that he's been on it, and we've taken our customer service in that area to a very good point. It is incredibly frustrating. I know when I was renovating, again, that was 25 years ago, I lost the will to live. It was painful dealing with the city. And that was 25 years ago. Things have changed. Like, things are really, you can walk in there now, people are responsive, people want to talk to you. And I think we still hear horror stories, and I think what the difference is now when we hear the horror stories, I hear, okay, how do we fix this? Versus, that didn't happen. So I'm seeing a different attitude towards it, which is all I can ask for. I'm going to just jump back to your immigration, because when it goes to businesses, one of the things I want to talk about is business immigration is also very important, and it's something that we never talk about. We always talk about immigration in terms of immigrants, but there's lots of immigration that's business immigration, and that is huge, and it's an untapped market that Canada is really poor at tapping into. So when I go to immigration fairs, I'm going to one in Mexico actually next week, after 5 days on the beach, but I'm still going. And the point is, it's all business immigration. And it's really interesting. So Mexico is kicking our butt on immigration to drive businesses down to the PV area. And it's like, we're not doing that. And it's not Medicine Hat. This is, and I've worked with Glenn Motz's office on some, there's a few of us that work with Glenn on this issue. So it's not just about what we can do for the businesses, but once the businesses are here, and I'm just going to be very candid, when we talk about immigration, I just feel like people get it in their head that we're talking refugees. Those are two very different streams of immigration. There's 5 different streams. So when we're talking immigration, I guess I had 90% of the immigrants that come to Canada look like the rest of you in this room. They do not look like me, okay? So that it isn't a color thing, it's a culture thing. So we need to differentiate between those two things. Because when we're talking about immigration help, there's only one place in town that does that, and that's Samus Immigration. And they are there to service people that already have permanent resident status. There is nobody in town that deals with people that don't have permanent resident status, other than our new hire for the city. I hear he's going to do that great. So it is a totally different world. So there is absolutely nothing for people that don't have permanent resident status. So when Councillor Van Dyke is talking about these things, the only tools that are out there is this room right here. It's the business owners. It's the community that says, hey, you know, you lived in Ireland your whole life, let me show you what we do here. So that's where the difference is. It's not just about language, and it's not just about minority, it's about culture. And those are two very different topics when you talk about immigration. So tying that into business, I think we have an untapped market. So there's a couple of businesses I know in town that are trying to sell, and they haven't moved very well. So I was going to talk to them about some business immigration. There's people right now that I have in the UK that want to come here. They have the money to buy the business, they have the expertise, and they pretty much get their business right in, and they get their permanent residence. So it's a win-win.
Thank you. Councillor Robbins.
Yeah, I really like the question, which is why I'm jumping in. What do you see as the city's role in assisting and spurring business growth? When we did our strategic planning 2 years ago, we had lengthy conversations about this, sharing ideas from our own backgrounds, and as Councillor Hyder said, we're 9 people that come from 9 different perspectives, but that was one thing that we landed on very quickly as critically important. And I think, we're frustrated, the community is frustrated. The city itself is like a cruise ship. And so turning it around in the direction that we wanted it to go requires lots of work, but it requires a captain of the ship. And we didn't have that until recently. And then the captain that says this person does this, and this person does this, this person does this. And then we actually are able to move in the direction we want to go. So when I read the question, I'm like, what do you see as the city's role in assisting spurring business growth? The city's role is everything in this. We can spur business growth or we can stall business growth. And all of our conversation very early on was, we want to get to yes. How can we do this? How can we make this work? How can we make this a place that people want to live and work and build their businesses? So I'm very optimistic now that we have some of the people in place who are going to help turn the cruise ship in the direction I think the community really needs and has been asking us to do. But I did want to say, really, of the 9 of us, when we're talking about all kinds of things that are important to us and working on what the strategic plan is going to look like, that was really one of the things that we emphasized early, and something that many of us talked about during the campaign as well, and carried that in. It hasn't carried forward to actual action or momentum. This is the first time I'm feeling optimistic that that's possible. But in terms of spurring business growth and the city's role, everything, I think that, again, we can spur growth, and I think we can. That this community builds businesses that are extremely successful, or we can stall business growth by standing in the way of that.
Thank you. So what I heard is that Medicine Hat is the Puerto Vallarta of the North, and City Manager Mitchell is going to be taking us on a cruise soon. So we're at just over the halfway mark, so thank you to all of you for your patience and for listening to the very insightful answers of council.
Can I just ask you one question? Have questions been submitted? Do we need to pick up the pace on our answers so that we can get to them?
Well, we're about a third of the way through the submitted questions in advance. So I'll, knowing that and knowing there's a few to go, again, weighing in when there's additional insight to provide, and then I'll ensure that we kind of move forward. Staying on the topic of economic development, part of the challenge in attracting new people in the region is the perceived lack of high-paying jobs. Mayor Clark, you've been a very passionate advocate for the Brood report and the business retention, expansion, and workforce development. We love acronyms in the city. But how do you think that can be addressed in terms of workforce development and the perceived lack of high-paying jobs?
The perceived lack of high-paying jobs, the success of our business locally is incredibly important. So business retention and expansion, small businesses, and you will correct me, 95% of jobs in Alberta.
We have 96.8% of our businesses here are small businesses.
Yeah, so as you can help them to succeed and expand, you naturally have, even if each of those businesses just adds one employee, that is a huge impact on the overall economy. And as I mentioned before, economic gardening is, obviously investment attraction is part of any economic development strategy. That's just factual. But you have to have fertile soil. And one of the best indicators of whether or not you will be successful at attracting new industry is if your existing industry is thriving. So that's critically important. The other thing we're doing on a more of a long term is we all know that decarbonization is coming. A lot of our high-paying jobs historically have been large emitters, and so mitigating that carbon risk over the long term is critically important for us. Right now, we we have a lot of complex issues in Medicine Hat. So housing is an issue. It's hard to even, have a business if you can't have places for your workers to live. Labor is an issue, so the cost of labor and actually having labor exist is critically important. So those are issues that affect small businesses. So can they find the labor they need to actually exist currently at a reasonable cost, and then potentially to expand. So definitely, I don't know if you're getting at this, but investment attraction is critically important, but also just ensuring that our businesses that are homegrown are able to be successful. Another really critical aspect, and I know Community Futures, Apex, both working on this, and you guys as well have some materials on your website, entrepreneur development. So if you can grow a business here from the ground up and have the access to the capital you need here to try something, that's huge. Because if you grow here, you're more likely to stay here, and then you're bringing investment into the community. So part of that is, education and facilitation. Part of that is, and this is, something that we talked about earlier about removing obstacles, but instead of making someone go from a home-based business to a large commercial space, what's that in between? What's that missing middle where, you can test, you can kind of grow with your business and test out whether your business is going to be successful before you make that huge commitment and investment with that large capital to see if your business is going to work or not. So those are a few things. I don't know if anyone else has anything to add.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. What is the city doing to address the mental health, drug, and homelessness issues that business owners, and particularly those in the downtown core, are struggling with? And Councillor Robbins, as the chair, you've been chair of Public Services Committee and on the Medicine Hat Community Housing Society. Perhaps we can start with you.
Sure, I'm quite happy to talk about this, but I'll be brief because I know we want to get to other people. First of all, when I look at the question itself, the question is always, what is the city going to do? And we have to understand, first and foremost, that there are other levels of government responsible for these areas, and the city is not. So mental health treatment is the province, addiction treatment is the province, homelessness issues in terms of affordable housing is sometimes federal funding and sometimes provincial funding. And the shelter is funded by the provincial government. So where there is advocacy needed in these areas, and I completely agree that there are other levels of government that require that advocacy. And we hear about it a lot in Medicine Hat. And I will say that I've spoken to many business owners downtown. As I've said before, up in Grand Prairie, my dad owned a business in the downtown core of Grand Prairie, which is a fairly rough place in the 80s, as I was growing up there and walking to his business to help out. And I've spoken to many business owners in Medicine Hat, and I found them extremely compassionate, understanding. I think the problem is created by this perception of people that they should avoid downtown businesses for whatever reasons that are of their own. And I've said this at a different town hall in a different way, but the customers of the businesses choosing to stay away is affecting the business more than the homeless are affecting the business, if that makes sense. This perception of lack of safety. And so we know that there's the downtown patrol unit, we know that there's outreach workers, we know that the library has a social worker at the library. There's lots of opportunity for resources for people who want to have a home. But many of the people that we see hanging out downtown, and I say hanging out downtown, I've heard lots of other descriptions of them, but I'm just going to say they're hanging out downtown because they like it downtown. And they have things to eat downtown that they may not have in their own homes. It's a perception issue. I sit on a number of provincial committees because of my day job, and also went to Alberta Municipalities Conference, and this was the topic across the, like from a police enforcement perspective, I've heard lots about that from different cities, and then in Alberta Municipalities, I heard a lot about this topic as well. It is not unique to Medicine Hat. So when the question is what is the city doing about it, I do sit on public services, community development is part of that portfolio, one of the departments we work with, and I know that the people in community development are working with all of the agencies possible to try to come up with like actual solutions. I know I'm sure there are some people here who attended Medicine Hat Community Housing put on a forum on homelessness so we could talk about actual solutions to the problems. The real question is, and the question came up several times in that forum, is like, what is the role of the city? As I said, mental health, addictions, provision of shelters, these are not municipal responsibility. They belong to other levels of government. And certainly the city's role is to advocate within those levels of government to make sure that the issues in Medicine Hat are well known. I do find that having spent some time at Edmonton at Alberta Municipalities and some of the issues that they're having in their downtown core, I mean, it's all proportional. I'm not saying it's not an issue, but I think that the statistics we get from the Downtown Patrol Unit and are really important to remember. And I'm not saying this to anyone here who doesn't know what I'm talking about. This is for really customers who would otherwise come downtown and are choosing not to. I love Medicine Hat downtown. I think it looks like a Hallmark movie. When I take my girls and we're walking down the street, like, it's so enjoyable. And I wish that more people would say, like, they've run into many people who looked sketchy, I'm going to say, and I'm holding their hand and we're walking together, and there's not fear there, maybe a bit of curiosity, but not much fear. It's not like my kids aren't street savvy. They're smart enough to know how to get out of trouble if they needed to. But it is not a place I avoid with my children because of fear. And I really wish that more people would understand, like, you go downtown and there's so many places you can eat and shop and visit and lounge. And I just wish that people would look at the positives in that, understanding that a lot of the issues that we're talking about don't fall under the municipal umbrella of things that we can solve, but things that we can facilitate and advocate for.
Thank you. Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you, and you called on me faster than I could find the document I was looking for, but just to piggyback a little bit off of Councillor Robbins there. So we had a forum here in this room actually in June where we discussed these issues. And we had a lot of, we had downtown business owners, we had different levels of government, service providers, Alberta Health Services, and a report came out of that, which is available, I believe, on the Medicine Hat Community Housing website. And one thing I really liked is we had these roundtable discussions where we talked about issues, and then we discussed like who's responsible for these things. And in the report, it actually breaks it out. Who is responsible for these various areas, and it's exactly as Councillor Robbins said, there's a lot of other levels of government that these issues fall onto, and surprisingly, and I'm going to become the councillor who only ever talks about public bathrooms, but one of the only ones that actually falls on the City of Medicine Hat is providing public washrooms. And so we talked about like what are the locations in the downtown core and what can we do to facilitate, and it was out of some of those discussions that came forward the work that our community development and our development and infrastructure group have done in providing 24-hour bathrooms at the transit terminal, and then better signage so people know where those washrooms are available so that the public can access them. There's a policing portion as well that in some ways does fall under the municipality because we have a municipal police force, but there are policing issues, and having been on the police commission, I can say that the call-outs in the downtown core are not, like they're very low level, and most of them are not even crime. It's that someone has seen someone in an area and are concerned. I think they call it suspicious activity or something to that effect. So it's people hanging around that maybe look different than we would expect to see, and so it gets called in. But the actual crime levels in the downtown are considerably lower than most of the rest of the city. And so it's very much an issue of perception, but we do know that the perception of safety is as important as actual safety. So I think we can work on that. And a little bit, and I was going to talk about this later in one of the further questions, but I'll mention it here because Mayor Clark had said something about it before. I read this really great kind of monologue on rhetoric around downtowns, and this was out of Red Deer. And I think it's very easy to have kind of a negative rhetoric about the downtown, but I'm here, I come to the downtown almost every day. I intentionally choose to come down here and meet my friends here for meals or social gatherings. I bring my kids down here to shop if we want to have a little like outing, and we go have a coffee or hot chocolate, and then we go to like Riverbee Books or something like that. And when I hear people talking about issues with the downtown, it's not that I'm trying to be Pollyanna about it and ignore it, but this is not unique to Medicine Hat, and I think that we just reinforce a negative stereotype if we're constantly saying we have all these issues in the downtown, there's all these problems. Yes, there are issues, there are problems, typical to every community across North America, but I think as leaders in the community, it's important for us to say, actually, it's pretty good. And no, there are not needles all over the ground everywhere you go, which is something I see people say on social media. I'm like, I'm walking those areas all the time, I've never encountered that. So I think providing the positive spin, and the other thing I wanted to mention is I work in my other job, I work in the like social and human services arena, and we have amazing not-for-profit agencies in the city that are doing good work all the time, every day, and collaborating together all the time. We refer to each other constantly. We have a lot of services. We have more than adequate meal programs, housing options, all kinds of support services available. And there's a very large group of people in this community working hard every day to make sure that people in this community are taken care of. And if you're not familiar with who those agencies are and you're looking for ways to refer, if you're a business owner and you're concerned about people coming in or hanging around your business, I'm happy to point you in the direction of different directories that can help you know who to call if someone that you see might need help.
Great, thank you. And if anybody needs resources, we definitely have those at the Chamber office as well. Councillor Sharps.
So I'm just going to be a ray of sunshine right now. So when I read your question of what is the city doing to address the mental health, drug and homelessness issues that business owners, particularly those around the core, are struggling with, I don't want to minimize what the business owners are coming forward with, because I get calls all day long. Are all of them valid? No. But are all of them not valid? Absolutely not. So I was in a PD development today with the police department, and I got a call to come down to my office right away because there was people passed out, and she was literally passed out on my thing. So I happen to know who she is because she's just a downtown frequenter, and to Allison's point, not scary at all, but I know that. I've been down here 25 years. So I walked over there, and they phoned me saying she's frothing at, no, she wasn't. But she was, just very inebriated. However, the difference is I just happen to know who this individual is because I am downtown 7 days a week. I come down here and I work out of my office. However, I don't want to minimize how some of the business owners are feeling because they are scared, and I don't think we should minimize that. I think we need to hear them, and to answer the question, what is the city doing to address it? Not a lot. But that's because, like you hear everybody, it's not really doesn't follow us. But I will tell you, about 10 minutes after MLA Wright got sworn in, I got to meet with MLA Wright, Terry Ann, myself, and the chief all went for coffee and said, what do we do? We got to do something as a team. So I'm not trying to minimize their answers, but like I said, I'm down here 7 days a week. I have no life. I'm down here quite a bit. And sometimes it does get a bit scary. And I'm going to tell you, there is times that I do have to walk around my property and clean up needles. I'm not saying it's doom and gloom, but I'm also not going to say let's minimize the crap out of this. For the average individual that's down here, most of it's not scary, but you know what? I had some young college students that are from a different country come see me for immigration services, and it was a late appointment because I couldn't get them in, and it was probably 9:30 at night, and they were a little freaked out. They were a little freaked, and and it was not a date. They were just like, hey, is that person okay? And I'm like, yeah, they're all right. So, what I see the city doing is educating more better. I think the Downtown Collective does a great job of that through the chamber. We meet, we've invited the city, they come, it's great. But to say that it doesn't exist, I don't think is the right answer. To say how do we do this better is the answer we have to figure out. But that's just me, I'm just a ray of sunshine today.
Thank you. We're going to follow up more on the topic of housing specifically. And Councillor Robbins, I'm going to loop back to you. Obviously, community readiness is a big part of a long-term strategy, and we've certainly heard the concerns about affordability and a lack of affordable housing, and we hear that right across this country. But can you maybe explain a little bit about the Housing Accelerator Fund, what that fund is, and how that might be used within the City of Medicine Hat? And if you want to direct it to another council member, you certainly can.
I might, if there's someone else who wants to say something about it. Councillor Van Dyke.
Yeah, Councillor Van Dyke.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm happy to pass my notes over to you, Councillor. I printed off a lot of stuff because it's lengthy, but I just wanted it for reference. So the Housing Accelerator Fund is a federal program that the city has applied to receive funds to move forward this the affordable housing in the community, which is a need not just here but everywhere. We're seeing, and I'm sure everyone reads the news stories about the affordable housing crisis all over this country. So city staff worked really hard in the summer when people were away, and they had a really short timeline on this, and they identified 9 initiatives. They had to submit a certain number in order to qualify for this, and they identified these as being very pertinent and applicable to the City of Medicine Hat. And I'm not going to go over all of them, it's quite lengthy. I think they are available in agendas. I'm not sure if they're available anywhere else on the city website, but they've been in discussion in council and in several committee meetings, I believe. The 2 that I'm kind of excited about the most is one of them where there will be pre-approved designs for like multi-family housing and missing middle housing that will enable developers to bypass some of the costs and paperwork associated with development. And one of the other ones is de-risking land. So sometimes we might have property in the city that has an old building that needs to be demolished, the soil might be contaminated, utilities need upgrading, and so nobody wants to touch that because the costs before you can even start building are too much for most people to consider. But the city would do that work in advance so that developers could come in and get to work bringing in some of these maybe missing middle housing as well, just to provide more opportunity for that. So I'm not sure the timeline on when we will hear about this fund, end of the month. So we're hoping for positive results on this one because I think it will be a real game changer for the community.
Great, thank you for that update. Our next question, where did the goal of 110,000 population for Medicine Hat come from? And how did we arrive at that? Mayor Clark, I know you highlighted that number. I think that's likely where it came from at the 2022 State of the City address. So maybe you could speak to that goal.
I was just the messenger, but it basically looked at a number that our existing services, such as transit and recreation services, as well as our college, would kind of be most efficient. And like transit especially, we, with our current population, and we're just, our transit system is kind of in this weird space where we don't have the usership to have a really robust transit system, but we still need transit. So working towards that goal of, you know, what size is our community based on the existing infrastructure and services where, you know, we're really going to be effective. Then 2.5% growth rate was applied, and we just worked back from, or I'm assuming this was a number put forward by administration, but I think that's basically how it was calculated. We now have, you know, there's been a lot of blows. There's, you know, COVID, and then we're in a situation where we have housing issues, and back to the point, there's affordable housing, but there's also a lack of attainable housing. We're in a situation where even, you know, you're not a person who would ordinarily in another time need subsidy for housing, but there aren't houses available that are attainable for most people with jobs, even with fairly good paying jobs, or what would have been considered good paying jobs previously. So that's where the number came from. It's aspirational, and it's, you know, probably in a community with the age demographics that we have, maybe didn't calculate in like what it actually takes to get a 2.5% growth rate when there are people, you know, we could potentially, if we don't grow at all, have a negative growth rate with the number of older individuals in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Van Dyke.
Thank you. Just because I'm a nerd and I like to read really what some people might typically consider boring things, the number of 100,000 has been used previously in the old MDP. In the 2012 MDP, it had a growth figure of 100,000 for the community.
Great, thank you. On to tourism. So, yes, Cassie, or Councillor Hyder, this one will be for you. How's the City of Medicine Hat supporting tourism in the city and in the region? So obviously Councillor Hyder, as a representative from tourism and Palliser Economic Partnership, I'll let you take the lead on this one.
Thanks, Lisa. Well, I mean, it's pretty easy when I can work with Jay Sanderson and his team at Tourism Medicine Hat and collaborate on events and different ways to strategize and share information about our awesome community. He makes my job pretty easy. Jace has a great team over there. They're always looking for new ways to be innovative and share our awesomeness, awesome things about our community. He loves to talk about our trail system. He really knows the ins and outs of what makes people tick, and I love the Sunshine Trolley. So as far as Palliser Economic Partnership, the city's fortunate enough to have a seat at that table and collaborate and talk with lots of different city managers and people with a vested interest in and around our community and, you know, foremost rural areas. And great conversations come from that, from renewable energy to different immigration to different, you know, retaining workers and things like that. So I'm very happy to be part of that and excited for what the future holds.
Great. Is there any new strategies or teasers that you can entertain us with that might be coming down the pipeline?
Not yet.
Yeah.
You should come. We could carpool.
Happy to.
We could go to Acadia Valley.
Always happy to take a road trip. Maybe just expanding a little bit more on the region, and I'll open this up to the representatives on the intermunicipal committee, so Mayor Clark and Councillor Sharps. Can you talk a little bit about the role of the intermunicipal committee and the broader strategic approach, as well as the city's efforts regarding collaboration within the region? We'll start with Mayor Clark.
Can I get a time check? I think
We're at 8:35.
Okay, and when are we scheduled to?
We have till 9.
Okay, so I will be quick. Intermunicipal committee is basically based on legislative requirement to cooperate with the adjoining municipalities. It started out fairly formalized, but I think, excuse me, sorry, we're working on making it really more broad, including ways to, you know, if it's going to be something that affects the region, whether it's Highway 3 or rec facilities or anything like that, that we bring into that committee and make sure that everyone's on, at least in the loop, if not, you know, really collaborating on what we need. Rec is a great example because, you know, Cypress County has certain rec facilities, like an urban rink, an urban curling rink. Red Cliff has certain facilities. They have schools, as do we. We have the college and the school boards, and as well we have our own rec facility. What recreation do we need for our region so that we can all partner together and make sure that we're maximizing the limited resources that we each have?
Great. Charlotte, or Councillor Sharps? It's getting later.
Yeah, it's
I'm
all
losing
good.
my formal protocols.
So Mayor Clark just came on that committee, I think, in the last 6 months, year, and I've been on it since the beginning. And I can tell you, one of the uphill battles was relationships. That is a mandatory committee, and so it's 2 councillors or a councillor and a mayor from every area. And I'm going to tell you, it was very strained, and I couldn't understand it when I got on there. And I just said, like, what is the problem here? And they're just like, you guys are bullies. And I'm like, okay, this sucks. So reality was we were. So what we've been doing for the last 2 years is building those relationships back up, because I am a strong believer that we are the biggest player in the room. We don't need to flex our muscles. We have it. People are going to come here to buy their houses. They're going to come here to go to school. They're going to use the college. They're going to buy their groceries. They're going to do all that stuff. So we don't need to flex our muscles. What we do need to do is build our relationships back up, and I really feel that in the last 2 years, we've done that. I make an effort to meet with the Reeve and the councillors and the mayor, coffee, as much as I can to make sure that they know that we're in it for the long haul for our region. This cannot just be about the city, because we're just never going to survive. Medicine Hat's not going to be this island that is profitable and green and oasis and everyone else is dying. It's just not going to work. So, but they didn't want to work with us any longer. So I found that we had to get back to basics. And I think Mayor Clark being on there again, and the Reeve and the Mayor Dwight, and then the 3 councillors, it's, myself and Robin Kirby-White, we're both not known to be really shy. So we kind of hit the issues straight head on. And I think we've made more progress in the last 2 years towards building a strong relationship. So hopefully we can start getting more things done now.
Great, thank you. I know we're running short on time, and I want to cover as many different topics as possible. So with so many ways to connect with people, there's still a challenge engaging the public in a meaningful way around city initiatives and issues. What engagement strategies have you been using to garner more active participation from the public, and what do you see moving forward? Councillor Robbins.
You're looking at me. So first of all, town halls obviously are a great way to talk to people. We've just recently changed the way that you can contact us. So you just click who you want, and the email goes out, so you can, it comes into all of our inboxes, whoever you click, and that form is a little easier than typing in everyone's email address. The other thing is we do have Shape Your City, and so most of the public feedback that I know the most about has come from Public Services Committee, either on Parks and Rec or Facilities for the Future. So that would be a combination of Shape Your City, where you could fill out a survey, or there'll be use of Facebook for the city page, or for those that don't use computers, the staff has gone out to different facilities, including at one point with Parks and Rec Master Plan with the library and different places, so that they could get input from people who would rather talk than type. So I think there's plenty of opportunity for input. As you heard earlier, all of us sit on a number of committees in the public, different boards. And the reason that we sit on those different boards is to do exactly that, is to get feedback from different walks of life. people in the library board that I wouldn't normally, for example, have contact with, have opinions, all kinds of things about the city that they give me feedback on. So I think that there's ample opportunity for that, and more importantly than saying there's opportunity is that when that input is collected and given to us in a what we heard kind of report, I don't know about everybody else, but I can say for myself that in making decisions, that's really the part of the report I will focus on first, is what do we hear from the community about whatever decision we're going to make. I think that there's some areas that we haven't tried to do a shape your city kind of feedback on that I think the community would like us to do. So I look forward to not just on big projects or big plans or whatever, but find out other ways we can engage those tools we already have.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hyder.
Just quickly, I think one thing for me is I'm fortunate enough to be born and raised here, so it comes with a curse of knowing everyone. Yeah, third generation. And I like actually, Lisa, to meet people and talk face to face with concerns and stuff. And it's not that time is a really crucial thing in everyone's life, but those times that you take for yourself to meet constituents or old friends or new friends to talk to them about our community is something I value. I see Jan Dines, who I've known many years, and it's nice just to be able to converse with people that own a business, have owned a business the majority of their life, and reconnect with them. So for me, that's kind of a thing.
Mayor Clark? You're looking, no? Councillor Sharps.
So one of the things that I do is, and especially from things that we say in council meetings, I get tagged in social media posts, and the very first thing I'll do is, here's my phone number, text me, call me, meet me for coffee in my office. So here's the thing, it's all about communication, and keyboard warrior is just so easy. So man up, come down here, let's go face to face and have this conversation. 9 times out of 10, I will learn something, and 10 out of 10 they walk out and we are good. We don't have to agree, but we're good. So communication, I love this, but I feel like it's very, very one way. So I very much prefer having a coffee, sitting down, and just chatting and finding out what, because a lot of the times what you hear on social media when they call you all these names isn't the root cause. So let's get to the root cause of the issue. So I find that an hour, 2 hours of my day is just, it changes everything when you get to the root cause of an issue. So I'm still that, here's my number, it's still on the website, I post it on everything. I am open to having a conversation.
Thank you. So we're at 8:43, and by my calculation, if we do some closing comments and each take about 2 minutes, that puts us at 8:55 thereabouts. So we're going to move into the final questions. We haven't had an opportunity to get through even all the pre-submitted questions. So that's my shout out, to make sure you submit questions in advance when you register for events, because the first one in is typically the first one out. But I would like to inquire if we can send the questions through to the city and actually distribute them to attendees, so any of the questions that we received still have an opportunity to be answered and distributed, and I see head nods, so we want to ensure that everybody has the opportunity to have their voice heard and have questions or have your questions answered. So we'll follow up and make sure that we're able to do that, and the benefit of registering is that you'll get that direct email as well. If you didn't pre-register, just let us know and we can take your email and make sure you get those answers. So for the concluding thoughts, I'm actually going to combine 2 questions into one. You're halfway through your term, still a couple of years to go. So what are your priorities for the next 2 years? And perhaps layering in, what do you think the biggest challenges for our community are going to be over the next couple of years? And we'll start actually at the opposite end of the table and work our way back. So Councillor Van Dyke, we'll start with you.
Thank you. So I think some of our biggest challenges we're facing One that we don't have control over is drought. And I think that's going to be an increasing problem in our region. And so I know it's something we talk about a lot around the council table. The other thing is economic development and growth, and it's something I'm learning about. I come from a nonprofit advocacy, faith-based career, so business is not something I'm super familiar with, but I've learned a lot, and I obviously understand the value and need for it in a community. So I'm excited with our new economic development officer and the staffing that will happen within that department, that we're gonna see some great ideas and some real solutions for the community come out of that. Not to put any pressure on the new hire that's sitting in the front row. That's something I'd like to see, and what I also want to see is some implementation out of the plans and studies that are being done right now. So the things I mentioned in I think the first or second question, the environmental framework, active transportation, community well-being. It's not enough to do the study or the environmental scan or have people sit around the table and come up with the ideas. You have to actually do something with that after. And so I'm really excited to see some implementation come out of that work that's happening right now. And I would like to say on the business side, please, if you have concerns or things that you think I should know about, please come tell me, because I'm not going to intuitively know any of those things, because like I said, this is not my background, but I'm eager to learn, and so I welcome conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sharps.
Thank you. Lisa, I think just a couple of things from me, some grassroots that we can get achieved. Number one, I think our workforce is the biggest thing with a mobile workforce, with a workforce that believes they have the ability to do what they want. 90% of this stuff will get headed into the right direction. When it comes to housing, I think it doesn't really matter how many businesses we have if we have no place to live. So we have to look at the brownfill, the infill, and I really want to make sure, I didn't say it at the beginning, this really ties into derelict properties for me. I think that we can use, well, that's what I would like to see anyways, is that we use this bylaw to promote people that own these houses, and so they can see a light at the end of the tunnel and say, oh, I can do this, and maybe the city will help me, and we have a win-win where we have housing and we have developers that are happy because they're making money, renters are making money, landlords are making money, and then we have people walking around downtown again. And then plan for downtown would be my big thing. And now, when I talk plan for downtown, I'm sure everybody is sick of, what are we doing to revitalize? Because I know I am. So I guess when you build a house, you just don't throw a bunch of rooms together and say, this is a house. You have an idea where your bedrooms want to be, where your kitchen wants to be. And that's one thing I've never heard us plan about downtown. So you go to a mall, and the very first thing a mall does is plan where their Lulu is going to be, which I really think we should have one, where their bay is going to be, and we don't do that. We don't actually sit down and say, what do we want here, and who can we attract, and do we go out and try to talk to them? So really, and the reason I bring up Lulu is because about a year ago I reached out to them because I am a huge shopper there, and I said, what do we need to do to get you Medicine Hat other than at the golf courses? And they said, I don't know, let's talk. What do you want to do? So interesting, that conversation is still going on. But the point is, what do we want? We always say we want businesses down here. What do we want? I don't know what we want. I don't want another coffee shop because I love the 3 coffee shops that are down here and I think they're amazing, but I also don't want to saturate the market that none of them are successful. So I think we need to be very strategic in what we want, not just say we want growth. What do we want? That's it.
I'm going to fact check you. I think we have 6 coffee shops downtown.
I've been to at least 4, so...
Councillor Roberts.
I like to follow the coffee shops on Facebook because they post their baking of the day, and then I'm like, now I know where I'm going later. So the short term and long term, I think on the short term economic development, that's been said a couple of times. We also still have a deficit budget that we manage through reserves, and closing that gap so there is no longer a deficit, so the reserves can be available for all kinds of incentives and things that'll spur economic growth. I think that's important to do in the short term. It's also a longer term project is to reduce that deficit, but there's a plan and it's a good plan and we're executing the plan, staff are on it. In terms of the long term, I definitely think sort of on the long term is what we're going to do with the facilities as we talk about facilities for the future. And through all that sort of thread, and I'll give a shout out to the chamber, you've been in chambers many times, and you always say that the chamber wants to just help and be a resource and provide information. And so I think over the short term and long term, I would like to make sure we continue to explore that relationship. And that we actually, you say that you want to do that, but I hope you know that we want to hear from you as well and talk about those issues. I did not get to be the chamber representative this time, that's Councillor Sharp's, but I'm always willing to have a conversation with the chamber anytime.
Thank you. Councillor Hyder.
Lisa, so short-term, pretty similar to Councillor Robbins in regards to the budget and economic development, and I do Jerome as well. I think we need to work harder on our communication and education to citizens of Medicine Hat in regards to our utilities. There's the U word. I said it. Because it is a complex animal, and I applaud Admin and Michelle Pankos for, trying to educate and share the knowledge that she has with people. And it takes time to understand, and I think we need to do a better job of that. Facilities for the future, I'm most excited about. Enhancing our community with some awesome rec centers, and I really look forward to seeing the outcome for that.
Great, thank you. Mayor Clark, you have the final word.
So the things in the next 2 years, and then what was the other thing?
And challenges that you see that you need to
So I guess those
overcome in the
are
next
kind
couple
of
years.
related, thank you.
Mhm.
So we have received funding and have started work for a regional economic development plan. It's a huge goal to have that economic development plan completed, begin implementation in a way that the other municipalities that are part of that plan and the community partners that are part of that plan feel like part of that plan. They feel like partners in that plan and committed to it, and that we find ways for it to be sustainable, because we all know that there's this pendulum swing, or whatever you want to call it, with economic development, where it's regional, then it's not regional, then it's regional, then it's not regional, and we have to find a way to have a sustainable system structure for continuing a unified plan with we each have our own role, but for economic development, because if we can't define our competitive advantages, clearly define our competitive advantages as a region, we will not be competitive. And that's something, as we look at a more globalized world, we are competing, we sure are competing with Calgary, we're competing with Lethbridge, but we're also competing with other countries and other cities in other countries. And so we need to have a really defined set of competitive advantages here, which we have many. We just are not necessarily good at exploiting them, defining them and exploiting them. In terms of challenges, it's kind of like will be part of any economic development strategy, but we have been working, and I know the province is working, the affordability is huge for people and for businesses. You look at how much materials cost, how much capital costs. These are issues that are bigger than the city, that are bigger than the province, and those things, the fact that your mortgage, when you renew it, can go up from 2% to 8%. That is a challenge. And that it's very, very difficult right now to even build a house that is in an attainable price range. Those are challenges that will impact our ability for our economy to be successful. So it's a bit of a chicken and an egg. And then, over the next couple of years, we're going to have to start making some really big decisions around energy transition and what that looks like, and and how we execute on that in a way that protects our energy utility and protects the citizens of Medicine Hat, our distribution area. And so that includes like, what does microgeneration look like? What kind of, whether we contract for green energy or we look to supply it ourselves, what does that look like? And those are exciting challenges. That one is an exciting challenge. I think we can be really innovative there, and we have the opportunity, owning our own utilities, to think outside the box and maybe do things a little bit different, but we have to make sure that those conversations, as you said in our meeting yesterday, include these stakeholders, and we're defining what the issues are and the why and how to solve those problems. And I also would just really like to, and I think I speak on behalf of all of us, thank you so much for moderating and for hosting this event. It's very much appreciated, and we look forward to further conversations and providing more answers. Maybe people are left with more questions than answers from this, but I hope not.
Thank you so much to each of you for taking time out of your already busy schedules, particularly following a very late council meeting last night. We do encourage members of the public or business community to get involved and get engaged. There was resources that members of council cited this evening that are great resources to use. The Shape Your City website, Exploring the City of Medicine Hat website. We have absolutely been working with city staff over the years to make it more user-friendly, looking at FAQs and instructional videos. So there are resources there. Please do use the Chamber site as a resource, and we encourage you to get involved, become an engaged citizen, whether through the committees, commissions, and boards that the city regularly seeks to recruit to, or the Chamber's committees and working groups. We definitely want and have heard that we have an engaged community, and so we definitely want to hear your voice and to continue the dialogue. So if you have questions that you did not get answered tonight, or as Mayor Clark stated, you have additional questions that were spurred from the conversation here this evening, please reach out to our office. Alex is at the back. She's our email guru in the office, so you can email her at industry@medicinehatchamber.com. And before we leave tonight, I'd like to bring back our President, Trevor Anhill, just to say a few concluding remarks.
Thank you, Lisa. I will echo the mayor's comments, and thank you so much for moderating this evening. I think the final question should be, when do you sleep? Or do you sleep? I think we know the answer to that, but wow, to each of those on my right, thank you so much for this evening. Your care and work and planning for this community is unmatched, so thank you for everything you do. I know I'm in between you and your pillow, so I'll make this very quick. On behalf of the Medicine Hat District Chamber of Commerce, I'd like to thank each of you for attending our business town hall this evening. And it is the Chamber's mandate to seek to understand and help the public understand the issues at stake in our municipalities as they relate to business. We hope that you feel we've achieved this evening. Some thank yous are in order. I would like to thank the Chamber of Commerce staff. So Lisa did mention, of course, Lisa's here. Alex is in the back. We've got Becky as well. I don't want to miss anybody. Morgan is here too. Carrie is here. Our entire team is here. Brad, the new guy on the wall. Brad, you back. Yeah, thank you so much, Chamber team. City Manager Ann Mitchell, thank you so much for your collaboration tonight to making this happen. And your team, so many city people here, so thank you so much for that. And finally, I do want to recognize the board of directors with the Chamber who are here this evening with us. Steve Hyde, our first vice, and incoming president, he's here somewhere. And as well, we also have Davis Kriskowski, who is our incoming treasurer. Davis, thanks for being here. And last but not least, in the Chamber community, Mr. Aaron Fleming, personal friend of mine, and is currently the president, or sorry, the chair of the Alberta Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. So thank you, Aaron, for your